The engineers of the nubs can be found in China, Japan, Indonesia, Sri Lanka, India, Syria, Turkey, Lebanon, Israel, Jordan, Iran, Egypt, Ethiopia, Tunisia, Italy, Greece, Sardinia, France, England, Ireland, Peru, Ecuador, and more to be investigated. So are these prominent engineers, ladies and gentlemen, of the ancient alternative view? At first glance, the Coricancha wall seems as if there's nothing really to look at other than perfect stonework. However, one of the most enigmatic buildings in our ancient past has many, many secrets to offer. Now, if we take a look at this photograph, on the outside of the building, again, perfectly smooth stonework. To the naked eye, looking around, you probably wouldn't notice this solitary nub just staring and looking at us. So anyone that knew the nubs, anyone that manufactured or made them, would be in the know that this building contains such features. Now, a Coricancha, as I've said, is very enigmatic. And again, at first look from the outside, you'd think that this is just smooth stonework. Now, everywhere very, very smooth. However, just peeking at us here on this photograph is a section that has 4 nubs. Now, this is rebuilt because we can see that there's mortar in between the bricks. However, this is very, very ancient. No signs of nubs anywhere other than here. And let's have a little bit of a look at those in detail. So again, anyone in the know that came to the Coricancha in ancient times would have seen these and probably just wondered, what on earth are they? But the rest of the building doesn't show them. I wonder why, ladies and gentlemen of the ancient alternative view. Excuse me. Now, as we go to the inside of the building, this has to be, well, if you look at these nubs, and these are nubs, these nubs have angles on them, so they were definitely part of the manufacture. Now, the different sizes and the technical aspects of these nubs, notice as well, no polygonal stonework, straight, 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 straight. They're proving to us here that they didn't need to, in this structure, do any sort of polygonal stonework. Just bear that in mind. But these are some of the most technical nubs I've ever found in my searches. And what I'm going to propose to you today, ladies and gentlemen of the ancient alternative view, is a theory that's never been proposed before. I think that these nubs are part of an ancient stone language. And these are part of the internal Coricancha, where the nub engineers could have seen, like a wall chart, this language. And we're going to have a look around the world, ladies and gentlemen, to see if I can prove it. Now, if we have a look on this wall here, it's not the greatest of photos, but you'll see my point. It looks on this side like there's no nubs at all, none, perfectly smooth stonework, apart from maybe here. Now, just get rid of that. You can see these are actually positioned at different parts of the blocks. They're different sizes, different depths, one over here to the left, one over here to the right, far left, far right. Now, if you can imagine this, as if the nub engineers walked past, had a look at it, and it was like a storyboard, almost like maybe a binary code or a braille pattern or something along them lines. I mean, the mystery does very much deepen, ladies and gentlemen of the ancient alternative view. Now, this is an excellent photograph. If we take a look at the nubs on here, you can actually see there's different varieties of nubs. Now, the consensus on European nubs, bear in mind they're all around the world, we'll have a look at the Athens Acropolis later on, and they are similarly formed like this, with a circular top, but they vary considerably from site to site. See one here to the left, one to the right, pitted middle here, nub to the right, one further in, 2 here, so a times 1, a times 1, 1 to the left, 2 on here. Could that be something that's speaking to the engineers of this Coricancha building? I believe it is, ladies and gentlemen, of the ancient alternative view. Now, I wanted to show you this just because nubs are so different from site to site. These cannot be for lifting, guys. The blocks are too small and the nubs are too technical. So I'm just saying that as these are internal to the Coricancha, couldn't these be part of an ancient stone language that we've lost? Just a question. Another example of just how perfectly these were formed. Now, again, this is inside a structure. Inside the Coricancha. Look, no nubs internally at all, apart from one here, slightly over to the right, and one here, slightly over to the left. Now, could that have been telling the engineers something? Now, what I said before with regards to they didn't need to do polygonal stonework. Just look at this example. Everything is very, very straight, as if the nubs are on lines. Now, two to the edges, one there. They're very, 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 very much apparent on here, but not on every block. Now, why? The only way that I can describe, now obviously this is newer here, mortar, but this is the ancient stuff. So this is where the nubs to me are jumping out and saying this has to be part of something bigger than just a byproduct made from a block making process, ladies and gentlemen. So this is the photo of all photos to those that study the phenomenon bevel blocks and the phenomenon of nubs. Bear in mind, this is the Coricancha in South America. Notice the uniform style nub. This here has been dipped as if the line has been changed. So if this was a language, then you have to look at that they change the line of the language by coming upward or downward, like they have there. Now, why is this the photo of all photographs? Well, the bevel block conundrum seems to all be in the Mediterranean. Examples in Turkey, like Belvi Mausoleum that we'll look at later, have beveled edges with nubs in the middle of the blocks. This is a fine bevel edge, ladies and gentlemen. One of the first bevel edge blocks ever found in South America. Now, this proves that the same engineering skill wasn't just in South America or just over in Europe or around the Mediterranean. No, it was worldwide. So the nub and bevel block engineers were worldwide. There's your proof there. Let's have a look at the configuration again. A 2, a 1, a 1, but slightly further across up the line and so on. I think you're starting to get where I'm going here, and wait until you see what I've found next. Now, I'm sure you've all seen quite a few of these images that I'm going to show you next, but when we're looking at it in a different way, what I want to show you is the way that their nubs were produced. Now, there's 3 here, 2 here, 2 here, 2 very small ones here, with what looks to me like 3 nubs there. Now, bear that in mind and keep it in your mind for a little bit later on in the episode. But if you imagine these as lines, going upward and downward, these lines could change what these nubs mean, couldn't they? Just for argument's sake at the moment, but that's just one of the photos, bear with me. Now, this has already obviously been seen, it's the El Puma at Cusco. But if we sort of forget that for a moment and look at the configuration of the nubs that are around it, I personally think that everything that was done was signs of the zodiac, so I think more scorpion, but there we go. But anyway, let's have a look at these. These are what are called inverted nubs. Now, I made up that term because there's nobody that actually had a term for them, but on blocks that we find that have got no nubs, they're actually inverted. Now, if you could look at this the same way as we have done before, like these are lines, and this is like times 2, times 1. Not quite sure what's going on there, but like maybe 2 inverted nubs here, an inverted nub there maybe. You get the picture here. And along this line again, 2 inverted nubs. Now, if this was some kind of encoded language, some kind of writing that only the nub engineers knew, then they could go up to these, know exactly what they were looking at, what was going on in the area. Anyway, let's go to some more examples, ladies and gentlemen. Now, I love this because it's a very, very detailed image. Apologies for some of the images if they're not coming out very clearly your end, but they're the best of what I could find. So anyway, do you see these? Again, different nubs. They're not the rounded ones that you found at the Coricancha, no. And what's that? It's not even a nub. So these are inverted nubs. See what I mean? Not knocked off, because you'd see a completely different effect. One nub there. Why not on all of these? Why not on all of them? Why on just a sporadic few of them? But anyway. If we take a look at the configuration of these nubs. These are massive blocks, by the way. And look how different they actually are. Now, if this was on a line and this was a language, and these were going up on a line like this, and only the nub engineers knew what they meant. Again, remember that these are thousands and thousands of years old and would have been more refined. So the language on these sites could have been a lot more clear back in our ancient past. Bear with me. Now, again here, these lines. See how the polygonal stonework changes to accommodate where the actual nubs are. Now, in my eyes, that's lines, and it's set almost like we were doing musical notes. I'm not saying they're tunes by any respect, but I do believe that there was some sort of communication for our ancients, and we're going to have a look. If you imagine, look at these nubs here, how different that they are. It's in the middle of a doorway, almost saying this is the middle of the doorway, this is the main way through the entrance. Now, again, if I bring you to the side view here, what would be the point in having these ones down here? There wouldn't be any. These blocks are so big if they were lifting bosses that they would break. They just simply snap off. They're, you know, hundreds of tons. So for me, this is a front view of what people would have seen with regards to the language. If you want to have a closer look, then there you go. These nubs side on it. I know it's distorted a little bit, but they're very different from each other. So maybe the indentations, the inverted, where they're placed on the block, where they're placed on the line, could have been very, very important to the letter or wording or number that they were trying to get to. Now, what I meant by inverted nubs is where the nub itself has actually gone into itself. I mean, there's different theories to that and how it could have happened, but these are massive. They're really pointy. It's like you or I could step on them, whereas these are very, very shallow. So could this wall have meant something completely different? Just a theory that I'm going to keep on rolling with because I'm passionate that this is true. Now, look, we've looked at this wall, but I've added some marks onto here. If you look at how the lines are set, how the nubs are set, how far apart they are. Why would you have one on that little block? You wouldn't if it was a lifting boss, for argument's sake. Now, more inverted nubs, look. More inverted. What if each of these nubs meant something different? Each of these blocks, for argument's sake. We'll come back to this picture. Now, again, here. Why aren't the nubs on this front part here? Because originally this bit would have been inside. I'm going to show you a separate image now in a moment. Look, all the way down there. Very few nubs at all, if any. Now, if you would have wanted to put them up and cover all of this so no one could see your specific language inside, well, they did a pretty good job. I know the stones aren't there now because you can see the cruder stones that have been put there by the later Incas. And you look at the megalithic stones here, where obviously they were capable of doing the nubs because they're there, but they're not on the front of the building. Maybe they didn't want to advertise themselves. Now again, imagine this was a corridor that we were walking down. And we were walking down this corridor. Look at how refined some of the nubs are. We've got a couple here on the bottom course, which discludes them being for lifting. So if we imagine these being a line and these two set in the middle here, and the major bulk is over here to the left and we were walking down the corridor, maybe it was simple instructions to what went on down the corridor. I'm not quite sure exactly what each one meant yet, but I am positive that they are a language. Now, why am I showing you this? Almost like a picture board. Now, do you see here, we've got a better picture coming up, so don't worry. These are all nubs, internal nubs, and likewise, these were nubs. So, let me just take you to this next photo here, which is very, very clear. I'm going to ask you a question. If you guys have been following me at all, then you'll know that I did an episode on Yangshan, and you'll all be aware that Yangshan is in China. And one of the megaliths there has an enormous lifted nub on there, maybe 5 or 6 on one of the megaliths. Isn't that eerily similar to those? But where would you have been lifting that to? Likewise, the Yangshan megalith. Impossible. But here's some internal nubs here. Also on here, you have got the incised motif. It's very difficult to see. If I go back a photo, I think even though it's darker, I can show it you. Now, let me just zoom into here. Do you see it there? That's the incised motif. It can be found in Palmyra. Well, it could have been found in Palmyra. I do have photos of it. If you go onto my Pinterest, Phillip Corbett, you can find many, many, many examples of the nubs all over the world. It's a bit of a where's wallet finding some of them, because some of them are singular to show that the nub engineers were there. These are showing you that something drastic was going on. They didn't have to produce these nubs. They could produce blocks as we've seen without them. But when you can deduce that they're proving that they're making the same blocks at the same places in South America as they were in China. Now, again, quite a small photograph, so I do apologise, ladies and gentlemen, but do you see how some of these blocks have nothing? They just left them completely empty. And to the corner here, there's a small one, very defined one here, a very defined one here, and then down the wall, obviously the more crude stone from later generations up there. It's almost as if on the inside of here they were leaving a message for us. So why in essence am I showing you this? No real nubs coming out other than these ones here and here, which are from a later date and repurposed, so we'll leave that for another episode. However, the megalithic part here, look at how some of these stones have been made. Now, over here you've got what looks like partial inverted nubs, maybe a nub there, maybe one there, but it's these lines that fascinate me. Maybe the outside of here at some point was trying to tell us something, because if you bear with me, ladies and gentlemen of the ancient alternative view, JJ, megalithic maiden, she made this discovery, and it's the same 3-marked stone. Now, we're going to look in detail at this wall, ladies and gentlemen. Not maybe on this image as much, but lots. Notice these 2 nubs, circular. If ever there was a language in our ancient world in nubs, look at the 3 above the door, the 2, the 1, the 1, the 2, the 2, the 2 in the middle. But we're going to have a look at this in detail, ladies and gentlemen. Excellent find, JJ, well done. Now, in the heart of it, so-called Egyptian engineering, we find the nubs. Look at those, there's actually 2 on the other side as well. Now, these could have been functional when it comes to water coming in and out of here, bear that in mind. I've got a cracking link for that in a moment. But these are prominent, defined nubs like we find all around the world. Now, maybe this said what the function was, how full it had to be, a level marker maybe. Now, if we have a look here on these stones, these are almost flattened, as if they've been flattened completely, like the entrance. And it looks as if they would have gone all the way up, to me, all the way up over the top of the building. Now, the coup de grace, ladies and gentlemen, when it comes to nubs and nub photos, this is it. Look at the opposing nubs here, guys. 2 here, 4 here, and 2 opposing nubs there. None surrounding. Maybe 2 opposing there. This is unbelievable. If this is a language and this went all the way up the pyramid, no wonder the casing stones were removed by later generations that didn't want the language deciphered. But why on earth would those have been put in that configuration, guys? They simply wouldn't unless they meant something. Now, what I'm going to do is zoom into this photograph here and show you just how easily they could smooth the entrance stones here. And if we look back a bit as well, look at this here. I mean, a couple of colleagues of mine have thought this may be an animal, huge nub coming out of the stone. Do you see the size of the little girl here? Look at the size of those nubs in comparison to her. If these are a byproduct of the making of the blocks, which I believe that they are, then these were done on purpose, because there's none on these. Sets of 2, 2, 2, or 1. What could have been 2, 2. The opposed nubs here, guys, the 3, the 2, the 1. I mean, really, this is jumping out at me massively that it is a language. Now, let's have a little bit of a look and a zoom into 2 of the nubs. Now, these are rounded just like what we saw. These are the massive nubs that the little girl was by. They're huge. Look at them. Now, these are part of the rock. They're actually part of the stone. You can see it here. You can see that this is part of the stone. They didn't have to do them. They could manufacture these blocks without them. The front of the Menkaure pyramid shows us that. So I am 100% convinced that this was a language. Again, signs on these blocks of nubs. 2, a 2, a 1. We saw this in South America, this exact same effect. The bevel blocks were down there, which we can also find in Egypt, guys. This is physical evidence in stone that proves the nub engineers were up to something, whether it be my theory of an ancient forgotten language, whether or not, or how they were made, whether they were a byproduct. This is proof these guys could produce them at will. And if they weren't something, why did they produce them? Now, this is another angle of probably the craziest set of alternate nubs I've seen. I've researched these and asked so many people why they are there. A 2, a 4, and an opposing 2. If that is not a language, ladies and gentlemen of the ancient alternative view, I do not know what is. Now, bear in mind, this would have covered the Menkaure pyramid. All these stones have been taken away or lost or whatever, but that was the casing stone. This language would have covered the casing stones, well, the Menkaure pyramid, ladies and gentlemen. More examples here. More examples of how the stones themselves have nubs on. Ones above do not. So they would if they were for lifting, just for argument's sake. But do you see how they're so different? They're so different and then smoothed. How did they do that unless it was heated? Were they just built as different blocks? Or were these meant to say something completely different? This is my favourite photo on the Egyptian Menkaure pyramid. It's almost like a storyboard of the nubs. This has to be a language. A 2, a 2, a 3, a 2 may be inverted, 1 in the middle here. There's blocks with none on, ladies and gents. Blocks with 1s on, blocks with none on. If these continued all the way up the pyramid, can you imagine what these nubs would have said? Now, bear in mind the weathering that's happened on the pyramids of Egypt. Bear in mind the thousands and thousands and thousands of years old these are, and how defined still these nubs are on the Menkaure pyramid. Ladies and gentlemen, I propose to you that the nubs were a language written in stone. I propose to you that the nubs were a byproduct, but they were not a fluke, that these engineers knew exactly what they were doing, and that we are missing, ladies and gentlemen, a huge part of the puzzle by not looking into the nub phenomena more as an ancient language. The Athens Acropolis, ladies and gentlemen, probably one of the best sites in the world for nub architecture. Bear in mind that quite a lot of these blocks may have had nubs on, but we see a distinct pattern of just how defined some of these nubs are to then none at all. I know it's far-fetched sounding here. I know this isn't a braille board, but we communicate with that. What if engineers communicated the same kind of way visually back in the day? Look at how they're just set for no apparent reason, every which way but loose. There's absolutely no way to me that these are not an ancient language. Now, this is the outside of the building. Now, there are none at first view. You wouldn't walk up to that and go, this is a nub engineering building, but if you look closely, those in the know would have known. They would have seen these nubs. They would have been attracted to these sort of places, especially if they were a very, very intelligent set of engineers passing on secrets. The Coricancha shows that they may have been trying to hide themselves. The fact that on the outsides of these buildings, very discreet nubs. Something to think about, ladies and gentlemen. Now, on the outside of the Acropolis here, which again would have been inside, this part here would have been built up, and there's absolutely none at the bottom here, but different sorts of styles in nubs. Why are some of them shallow? Why are some of them more defined and refined than others? My answer is that this was an ancient language, ladies and gentlemen. That these people knew exactly what they were doing when they made the nubs. Now, here we go on the Acropolis. We've seen these in South America. Do you remember the rounded, almost triangular style nubs? These are in Athens. If these engineers did not come across each other, how are these nubs exactly the same? But I'd also like to bring you to, if this was a language, you see how they've got a block with two, a block with two, a block with one. 4 singulars, a 2, a 2, 4, a 2, a 2. It just seems to me like it's a definite language. Now, one of my favourite pictures of nubs. My friend over at Ancient History Criticisms, Andrew, he supplied me with this. Thanks, Andrew. We're going to have a look at something on Andrew's work momentarily, but if you look closely at the bottom row here, there are nubs. There is no way those would have been lifted up onto there with them. They would have snapped. You're looking at 2 to 500 ton blocks at the bottom of here. Admittedly, these are quite uniform. However, if you look closely, apologies for the loss of maybe some of the clarity here, but some are more refined than others. Some don't have them. Some are up here that don't have them. If they were for lifting that high, surely they would be there. This could be an ancient language staring us, ladies and gentlemen, right in the face. Now, it's thanks to very good researchers like Andrew at Ancient History Criticisms, Dave at Uchronia Utopia, Ziggy Dan, Shermanator, Bennett, Uncharted X, people that have taken fantastic photos of this phenomena that are allowing us to study not only the nubs, but the bevel blocks now as a worldwide engineering phenomenon, because that's what it is, ladies and gentlemen, of the ancient alternative view. Now, is this a language? It's down to you to decide, ladies and gentlemen. Now, my friend over at Ancient History Criticisms, Andrew, he is one of the best nub independent researchers on the planet, and he's excellent at finding these. Now, he's probably got one of the major finds in the ancient world on the nubs, and that was found in the Assyrian. Now, I'm just going to play this forward ever so slightly and just pause it here. Now, he's kindly given me access to his videos for usage. Now, this in the Assyrian is a water level, and it would have actually been above the nubs. So only at certain points would we have ever seen these. Now, there's another channel, a good friend of mine, called LA. Now, LAH, over the last 2 episodes that they've released, bar their New Year's episode, have been doing a canal system in Kapsnyapka. Now, these canal systems are eerily similar to the Assyrian in the respect that these nubs may well have been water level markers and could well have been underwater at specific points in time, but they're directly related. I mean, bear with this 2 seconds. Notice how they're on specific parts of specific blocks, one top left, one bottom right. Bear with me, ladies and gentlemen. I do have a close-up of a nub here coming up that I want you to see. Now, do you see this? These are some of the main researchers in the world on the physical evidence. Andrew at Ancient History Criticisms is one of the best nub finders in the world. We, as a team, along with all the other ancient researchers that I've mentioned, Dave Bubcat as well, if I haven't mentioned anyone, I do apologise. Michael over at Lost History, he's aware of this. Anyone that follows me on Twitter is aware that I put a lot of hours into the nub research. Now, these engineers were prominent, let's put that this way. These engineers were all over the world. Now, I'd like you to make your own decisions on what you think today about, well, I think some of the sites that we've looked at, ladies and gentlemen. Now, Bellevue Mausoleum, bevel edge blocks with the nubs in the middle, similar nubs at the bottom. They were in different positions, ladies and gentlemen. Look at this. I mean, you've got a 2, a 2, a 2, and a 1. I could go on all day about these at Bellevue Mausoleum. It's similar to the Menkaure pyramid in the fact that it all would have been cased in these stones. See the rounded that we've looked at today, the square protrusion. All could be different variables to a specific language that we are missing. And I propose that, ladies and gentlemen of the ancient alternative view, that the nub and the bevel blocks are its own language to its own engineers, to its own special set of engineers that were all over our world today. I'd like to say thank you for watching. For the first year, I started in January the 1st last year, and we're back at January the 1st tomorrow. I hope you had a lovely holiday, and I wish you all the best for the new year. And thank you very much indeed for watching.